Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 8, Prayers by Queen Kunti, text number 35. We have translation going on, yes. Bhavesmin klishamananam avidya kama karmavi shravana smara narhani karishan niti kechana bhavesmin klishamananam avidya kama karmavi shravana smaranarhani karishan niti kechana Vindayanam avidya kama karmavi Shavana smaranarhani karishaniti kechana bhavasmin kishamananam vidyakama karmavi Shavana niti kechana Nidishamananam Marhani Ladies. Bhave in the material creation, asmin this, klishamananam of those who are suffering from, avidya nescience, kama desire, karma by execution of fruit of work. Shravana, hearing, smarana, remembering, arhani, worshipping, karishan, may perform, iti, thus, kechana, others. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Yet others say that you appear to rejuvenate the devotional service of hearing, remembering, worshiping, and so on. So on, in order that the conditioned souls suffering from material pangs may take advantage and gain liberation. Purport. In the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, the Lord asserts that He appears in every millennium just to reestablish the way of religion. The way of religion is made by the Supreme Lord. No one can manufacture a new path of religion, as is the fashion of certain ambitious persons. The factual way of religion is to accept the Lord as the supreme authority and thus render service unto Him in spontaneous love. A living being cannot help but render service because he is constitutionally made for that purpose. The only function of the living being is to render service to the Lord. The Lord is great and the living beings are subordinate to Him. Therefore, the duty of the living being is this, to serve Him only. Unfortunately, the illusion living beings, out of misunderstanding only, become servants of the senses by material desire. This desire is called avidya, or omniscience. And out of such desire, the living being makes different plans for material enjoyment centered around a perverted sex life. He therefore becomes entangled in the chain of birth and death by transmigrating into different bodies on different planets under the direction of the Supreme Lord. Unless therefore one is beyond the boundary of this nescience, one cannot get free from the threefold miseries of material life. That is the law of nature. The Lord, however, out of his causeless mercy, because he is more merciful to the suffering living beings than they can expect, appears before them and renovates the principle of devotional service comprised of hearing, chanting, remembering, serving, worshiping, praying, cooperating, and surrendering unto him. Adoption of all the above mentioned items, or any one of them, can help a conditioned soul get out of the tangle of nescience, thus become liberated from all material sufferings created by the living beings, illusion by the external energy. This particular type of mercy is bestowed upon the living being by the Lord in the form of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Verse again, Bhave smin klishamananam avidya kama karma vi shravana smaranarhani karishaniti kechana. And yet others say that you appear to rejuvenate the devotional service of hearing, remembering, worshiping, and so on, in order that the conditioned soul suffering from material pangs may take advantage and gain liberation. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutaya Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Srinivadi Paskatyade Sadarne. In Srimad Bhagavatam, in this particular canto, we have Vyasadeva not feeling very well, despondent, actually depressed, because he had just compiled all the Vedic literature, which has information of everything from how to become rich and famous, to develop mystic powers, to merge in Brahman, everything. And it's something about Krishna also. And he was not feeling very good. So what to speak of our poor selves, who hardly know anything. The only mystic power we have is our ability to eat more prasadam than is possible. Still, he had the good fortune because Krishna is in his heart, and he was asking the right questions. He was asking, why am I suffering? Even Vyasadeva. And so Krishna sent Narada Muni, and Narada Muni said, because you're not hearing and chanting about Krishna enough. And when he started to do that, because he was a very elevated personality, therefore Bhakti Yogena Manasi, Samyak Pranihite Male, Apaishat Purusham Purnam, Maya Chad Tad Apashrayam. Therefore he was able to sit there and think about Krishna. And when he thought about Krishna, then he saw the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his complete form, and he saw that Maya was in back, embarrassed to come in front of Krishna. Yasamohita jiva atmakam trigunatmakam. Then he saw these souls, the conditioned souls, who are with the external energy. Yasamohita jiva atmanam trigunatmakam paropti manyate nartam tatkritam patipat chabipadyate. Then he saw the illusioned living entities, ourselves, samohita, completely absorbed in this bodily concept of life, actually believing to be something that we're not. namely this body. Now, if someone ordinarily, if they walk in here and claim they're Jesus Christ, or they're Lord Muhammad, or they're Spider-Man, whatever, Wonder Woman, whatever they may claim, we think they're crazy. But if someone says, I am from America, or I am from Slovenia, or I'm from India, or wherever else, we think perfectly normal. And if someone says, I'm from the spiritual world, then we call the hospital to pick them up. So the question is, in the beginning they wrote one little pamphlet, who's actually crazy? So there's the normal people, quote, normal people. They think they're perfectly sane, and they think we're crazy. And we know we're crazy, that's the difference. We know they're crazy, and we know we're crazy. So that's the difference between us and ordinary people. But we know the formula for waking up to understanding who we actually are. But that takes some patience, and it takes some conviction. It's not that we blindly accept that we're actually not this body, but just upon normal experience. We can only accept higher authority, actually accept it. One thing is to hear it and more or less not reject it or not accept it. There's a difference between rejecting it, thinking it's just fairy tale, it has no meaning, and accepting it blindly. Yes, of course, I have no idea what it means, but I accept it anyhow. So we're in between. We don't blindly accept it, and we don't blindly reject it. But we use our intelligence, and with our intelligence, and by following our intelligence in devotional service, we get some insight. And that little bit of insight goes beyond our present conceptions of material experience. If you're drowning in an ocean, it's very uncomfortable. If someone raises you for a few minutes, a few inches above the ocean, then you think, wow, this is really good. I'm in bliss. So we may not be out of the ocean, but at least when we're performing devotional service, we're not in the ocean. We may not be fully self-realized, but we become a little bit self-conscious of our real selves. So therefore that's called faith. And on the basis of that faith, we can understand what is my goal of life. The first goal of life, as it says here, is liberation from the material concept of life. Because we can't love Krishna if we're suffering in the material world. We can love Krishna if we're suffering in the material world, in the sense that one can have a body that's suffering and one love Krishna at the same time. But generally speaking, if we're too much concerned with our suffering and our problems in material existence, it's very hard at the same time to think about Krishna. Our first business, if the suffering, especially if it's chronic, if it's going on for a long time, like having a material body is a chronic suffering condition, then the result is that we're always making plans how to get out of my suffering. So that's not bad. Most people are not making any plans how to get out of their suffering, and therefore they don't make plans to succeed, then you're making plans to fail. So they're making plans which were actually going, in order to get out of their suffering, because they don't know how to get out of their suffering, therefore they're making plans which will cause them even more suffering. Sometimes people think, they hear about the wonders of making money. On the internet, there's always someone telling you, you can make a lot of money just by thinking positive. Just think about all the abundance that will come to you. So you're sitting there thinking, all the abundance that's coming to me. I just paid 300 euros for the abundance to come to me, but it doesn't look like anything's coming. There's a fly that came to me. Is this what he was talking about? So people are getting more or less enthusiastic to somehow or another increase their material opulence. As Queen Kunti says, Janmaishwarya Shuddha Shrivir Edamanak Madak Pumang Naiva Hatya Vidatim Vai Tvam Akinchana Gochara. We'll come to that verse too. Maybe that was one of the original ones. Janmaishwarya Shuddha Shrivir Edamanak Madak Pumang Naiva Hatya Vidatim Vai Tvam Akinchana Gochara. Yeah, so people are very anxious for this janma. It used to be, if I can get a green card to go to America, then I have a higher birth. My birth is successful. I've entered into the promised land. Prabhupada said he thought, from what he heard in India, when he came to America, he thought when he went there, everyone's going to be rich and everyone's going to be rich and everyone's going to be floating in the air, dancing down the street. And then he was very surprised. He's certainly surprised. He wound up in the Bowery. Has anyone ever been to the Bowery? No one has ever been to the Bowery. I don't know if there's any, I guess maybe Soho, no, what's comparable? Parts of Holland are comparable. I don't know if anyone's been to Holland. It's like Arbut Street, but I don't think that's so bad. Anyhow, it's quite a degraded street. So Prabhupada realized that this is not what the propaganda says it is. Matter of fact, when Prabhupada had to go to his apartment in the Bowery, the people who were drunk, laying on the street, because they're homeless drunks, they'd have to get up, so Prabhupada didn't step over them to the doorway. And they paid him probably some respect, because Prabhupada was a saintly person, and even the bums we call bums recognize that. But people are imagining if somehow or another I go to this place, I'm going to become rich and famous, and maybe that's true. And maybe you'll get a great PhD degree and a postdoctorate degree, and you'll become a professor and get your Nobel Prize for discovering how many insects can fit into a hole in a wall. Maybe you'll become, by plastic surgery and a lot of makeup, you'll become beautiful, and everyone will surrender to you. They'll think you're 69 instead of 70. But whatever you get in the material world, you have to lose. Now, getting it is painful, but it's nothing compared to losing it. If you have a little pet dog, you have to take care of it, you have to walk it every day in the snow. You have to make sure it eats before you do. You have to brush it. You have to pet it. Fifi, I love you. So finally you met someone who actually likes you. As long as you feed them. Simple. But then if Fifi leaves this world, then you're completely brokenhearted. Your whole purpose of living, petting the dog and feeding it, has been taken away by the material energy. So you're depressed. You were so happy when Fifi licked you out of love. And now there's no more licks. Your whole purpose of life has gone away. And everything is going to disappear. At the end of life, You can't take your PhD degree with you into the next lifetime. Even you were a professor of mathematics at Harvard University, and all the scholars would come and bow down before you, but now you're back in kindergarten again. Because he gave a donation to the Hare Krishnas, you got a uniform of life. And you're starting all over. And you can't figure out how 1 + 1 could actually equal to 2 anymore. And all your teachers are chastising. When are you ever going to learn? Then you remember, yeah, I knew everything in my last lifetime. I got to start all over again. So everything is lost. Everything material is lost at the time of leaving this body. And that's even more painful than the attempts to get it. Therefore, yaya samohita jiva atmakam trigunatmakam. The living entities full of anxiety, not only in getting something, but the fear of losing it. And not only that, but it always turns out we're afraid, we're protecting, because of that fear, we're doing so many things to protect what we have, and then we lose it anyhow. Everything is lost, all at once sometimes, and sometimes a little at a time. Sometimes someone picks our pocket, and sometimes we drop something, we can't remember where it is. So the material nature is not a very pleasant place to spend one's existence. But anartho pasamam sakshat bhakti yoga arhochaje. So Srila Vyasadeva, he saw, yes, I had compiled so much Vedic literature, and I had realized that this world is full of suffering. But then, lokasya janato vidvam, chakre satvika samhitam. Then he realized that the solution is to compile Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam, the name, form, quality, and pastimes of Krishna. That's the solution to the problems. Now, if we go on the street, or you go to, say, any place where people, you go to a hospital, and you go in there and everyone's suffering. And you declare, I have the solution to your suffering in the hospital. And the doctors come around and say, what's your solution? Srimad Bhagavatam. Hearing and chanting Srimad Bhagavatam. People will think you're crazy. You go to even a yoga studio where people are doing yoga exercises, stretching and doing so many breathing exercises. And you say, I have the best yoga exercise. And they ask, is it better than the corpse pose? You know, the corpse pose. That's the ultimate yoga exercise. You lie down and you try to relax as if you're dead. My former teacher, BKS Iyengar, who was one of the more expert people in this exercise business, his book on pranayama, he has a whole chapter on the corpse pose. Because that is the perfection. To lie down and not feel any pain anymore. To have your consciousness everywhere, so it's nowhere. And you go to a yoga studio where they're practicing yoga, and you say, I'm a bhakti yogi. And you really, what do you do? What exercises do you know? Well, the only thing we exercise is our tongue. These are very special exercises. The thing we're most expert at is eating prasadam. Oh, I can relate to that. And then we get enough strength in our tongue, then we read Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita. If we're still awake. So people will think, what is this hearing and chanting? What's the benefit of that? I also hear and chant every day. I read Time magazine, we discuss it. I go on the internet, we discuss it. So I'm also hearing and chanting. So what's the difference? And we say, well, this is spiritual, and what you're doing is material. So then they think spiritual, yeah, what you're doing is like a ghost somewhere. Most people think spirit is like something kind of like ethereal being, which kind of like hovers somewhere. Therefore, we have to experience what is the difference between matter and spirit. But we can only do that in terms of how far we get to become liberated. Liberated from what? As I said yesterday, when we're so much in pain and suffering and anxiety about what's happening or is going to happen, it's very hard to actually concentrate on Krishna unless we're practiced. If you're in the dentist and you start hearing the drill, unless we're very practiced, we stop breathing, waiting for the shot. The last thing we think about is Krishna. But if we're practiced, we start breathing and we start thinking about Krishna, and then the drill just goes in the background somewhat. And there's some pain, but we realize it's not me that's in pain, my body's in pain. So when we're in pain, it's very, very difficult, unless we're practiced in Krishna consciousness, to actually meditate on Krishna, something beyond the pain that we're in. Therefore, in devotional service, it's recommended that people follow 4 regular principles. People don't think it's breaking these principles is what's causing my suffering. They think this is what the purpose of life is. Prabhupada there was one Marquis of Jacqueline, who was a governor of Bengal when Prabhupada was a student at the Scottish Church College. And he was a governor, and he actually knew Bengali. And he came to the school. He was a gentleman. He was in charge of Bengal under the British reign. And when he went back to England, then he had associated with the devotees of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. He was familiar with our philosophy. So he thought, let me become a Brahmin. So he went to one of Prabhupada's godbrothers and said, can you make me a Brahmin? So the godbrother said, no problem, I can make you a Brahmin, but you have to follow these principles. No illicit sex, no gambling, no intoxication, no eating. And he said, Marquis of Jutland, cultured gentleman, said, impossible. So this is a learned gentleman from England, and he thinks this is impossible. The very cause of our suffering, he thinks it's impossible to give up. This is my life. As one social worker told Prabhupada in Australia, and Prabhupada was trying to convince the social worker to help the devotees. The social worker said, I can't help you because I'm meant to help the public. So Prabhupada said, well, we're also the public. So you should help us. And then Prabhupada, when he mentioned about the 4 regular principles, he said, but me and my wife, we like illicit sex. That's what we live for. So Prabhupada stopped preaching to him. And he called for prasadam. There was really no point to getting too much into it. So this is what most people are thinking. This is life. And at the same time, if you go to a bookstore and you look at the topics under the health, half of them are about mental health, the anxiety. The other half is about what drugs to take. I think 1/3 of the people in America are on Prozac or something. Dull your pain. So if one has enough intelligence to realize this is the source of my pain, then one has actually made some progress towards liberation. Otherwise, there's no question of making any advancement in anything. By acting in the mode of ignorance, you don't wind up in goodness. And goodness is, at least from the material point of view, the freedom from distress. And therefore, it's a kind of what we call happiness. If you're going to the east, it's very hard to wind up in the west. So if people are acting in the mode of ignorance, then according to Bhagavad Gita, they're going to experience illusion, intoxication. What is that verse in Bhagavad Gita? Kama sukritasyahu satikam nirmalam palam rajasastu palam dukam agana tamasam pralam. So ignorance, madness, and illusion. That's what we get from acting in ignorance. From blindly trying to gratify our senses endlessly, we just wind up in ignorance, madness, and illusion. And to expect something else, that's called ignorance, madness. But when one gets out of that, then one comes to the platform of actually understanding things about how to live in the material world in a regulated way, and at the same time avoid miseries of material existence as much as possible. It was like Govardhan Majubdara and Haranya Majubdara, the father and uncle of Raghunath Das Goswami. They were very pious personalities. They giving in charity to all the Brahmins. They supported the Brahmins. But they were into material enjoyment. They knew how to eat nice prasadam. Their wives were from India, so they were good cooks. They knew how to cook very nicely. They were rich, so they only ate ghee. Their wives were beautiful. They had all the jewelry and everything else. Their house was clean. It was opulent, and etc. So they were enjoying life. So when Raghunath Das Goswami, their son, who was a devotee of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Krishna, the thought of him going to Jagannath Puri and joining Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they thought was abominable. They hired bodyguards to make sure their son didn't become a devotee. And they were devotees. Imagine that. They weren't on the level of Hiranyakashipu. They didn't throw Raghunath Das Goswami out of the house because he was chanting Hare Krishna. But they weren't very favorable. He's becoming too serious. It's all right. You can become somewhat of a devotee as long as you don't take it too seriously. That's India, right? Yes, you can chant Hare Krishna. Go to the temple, pray to Durga or Ganesh or Krishna, whoever you like, but don't take it too seriously. And then when he went to Jagannath Puri, and they sent money and servants to him, so he utilized it for some time to feed Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his followers prasadam, but then he gave it up. And things were going from bad to worse for them. Then he didn't have any more servants, he didn't have any more money, he had nothing, he was just standing there getting some donations from the priests that were passing by from the Jagannath temple. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was becoming more and more ecstatic, and his parents were becoming more and more anxiety. First we thought he was just a little fanatic, now we think he's completely a madman. And then it came to the point where he was taking the thrown out rice that the cows were going to eat, and then he was washing the grains to get to the hard part that wasn't rotten, and then only eating that. So I don't know if his parents had a heart attack in the meantime, or what had happened. Call the deprogrammers or something. Get him out of there. This is too extreme. But these were devotees. And what to speak of our associate, what our parents were teaching us. How many of them are actually encouraged by our activities? They hear that, yeah, my only if the devotees get married and have children, then the parents say, well, all right, everyone has problems. But at least they have children. So the dynasty is being carried on. The disciplic succession is going. Other than that, all the materialists are thinking that, well, if the devotees, nowadays, if the devotees are vegetarians, they sing nicely, they do a little entertainment downtown for the people, jump up and down like crazy people, a little bit of a tourist attraction, then they're tolerable. But the next stage, becoming a Jnani, or Jignasu, that's Bhavanam Janmanamante, Jnanamam Prapadite, Vasudeva Savramiti, Sarmahatma Sudurlabha. After many, many births and deaths, or Manushanam Sahasreshu Kasyat Yadati Siddhaye. Out of many thousands among men, one may be endeavoring for perfection. To get out of the material concept of life, that's perfection, liberation. So to actually become inquisitive about how to improve my life in devotional service, that's actually quite rare. A Jnani. One who's trying to become a Jnani by becoming inquisitive. Why am I suffering? What can I do to make spiritual advancement? Everyone is inquisitive how to get out of suffering. And unfortunately nowadays, one of the ways of getting out of suffering that people think is actually the most valid thing is to stretch your body. Do a little pranayama, etc., which is good to get out of suffering temporarily. But then they think that's yoga. That's the real yoga. And these Hare Krishnas, they're the pretending yogis. But actually the only real yoga is, ultimate yoga, is bhakti yoga, and everything else is just a temporary attempt to alleviate the miseries of material existence, which are impossible to permanently alleviate without Krishna consciousness. So to become inquisitive, how can I actually increase my devotional service and decrease my material dependency? Therefore, as Prabhupada said, if you become a devotee, the whole world will become against you, practically speaking. The whole world is geared up for increasing the GOP, the gross national product. It's not geared up for increasing everyone's level of devotional service. Which means, when they find out, when you become a devotee, you stop smoking, do you think the cigarette companies are going to put the Hare Krishnas on the cover of their... You give up meat eating, your picture will not be in a slaughterhouse. The man of the year or the woman of the year, and it's hung in a slaughterhouse. Except for the fact they may want to slaughter you. What to speak of the brothels and nightclubs, places of intoxication, gambling places. One of our leaders has casino. That's where his support is. So what can and he's just opening another casino now. So what can you expect from such a person? He's making his living by cheating others, by getting them to gamble and engage in all kinds of sinful activities. what kind of help is he going to give the country? As one of our devotees, Balaventa Prabhu, he was running for the mayor of Atlanta. And the mayor of Atlanta gave a speech, and then Balavanta gave a speech at a conference. And his first thing he said is that our mayor of Atlanta, he can't even protect, we see he's smoking cigarettes while he's speaking. He can't even protect himself. Everyone knows now that cigarette smoking is very bad for you, but he's smoking right here in public while he's giving his talk about how he's going to help the city, but he can't even help himself. So how is he going to help the citizens? Therefore, one has to understand that to increase our devotion, we also have to make some adjustment in our material life. Now, it may be very gross at first, giving up the sinful activities. Still, they're mentally, and by mentally, it deviates us also from devotional service in ways which seemingly are harmless, but actually they take our minds away from Krishna. And therefore, because our minds are being taken away from Krishna, therefore Krishna doesn't give us the intelligence because our minds are away from Krishna, we don't perform devotional service, therefore Krishna doesn't give us intelligence how to increase our devotional service. But if we put our minds on Krishna, trying to increase our devotional service, just making the effort, even without doing it, then Krishna will give us the intelligence how to do it. We may not even do it, but just by desiring to do it. And the way we do that is by somehow or another associating with the devotees and appreciating how they're doing more devotional service than I am, how they're doing better than I am, seeing their example. And just by seeing that, then Krishna will give the intelligence how to come to their level. Just by desiring that. When I was distributing books in the airport some years, I was in Chicago, and we had, at that time, Chicago had a collection of the world's first, second, third, and fourth, and fifth biggest distributors in the world. Of course, it wasn't as big as now. They were distributing, maybe 50, 100 books a day, big books, collecting maybe $500, $600, which was a lot of money back then, a day. And I was also there. I was only in the top 20 in the world. Every day I was distributing 60 hardbound books, big books, and collecting $200 to $300. But that was small time. That was like, I was insignificant. But I watched them distributing books, and whenever they distribute a book, I get real envious. I feel this desire. I want to distribute a book too, out of envy. And then Krishna would send me someone to take the book, because I had a desire to do it. Krishna didn't really see it was out of envy or out of competition, which is another word for envy. But then Krishna would send me something so I'd sell the book. So the association of devotees is so valuable, no matter what our consciousness is, because it inspires us to do better in devotional service, to do devotional service. Therefore, satam prasangam amavirya samvido bhavanti rakarna rasayanam kata. That, in the Bhagavatam, in the third canto, Kapila Deva says, it's in the association of devotees we develop this desire to hear and chant about Krishna. And even to remember him. Otherwise, we think we're doing quite well in the material world. Sometimes we may be in school and we get an A in our test and we think, well, if things are good. We get our degree, money's coming, everything. We think everything's good. This material world. Why does he keep on saying it's so bad? It's good. I'm getting ahead. People love me. They appreciate me. Now my parents can tell my neighbors about me. Before they said, "Well, what does your child do?" Oh, you don't want to ask. You don't want to ask. But I heard the other son was a drug addict, but this one's worse. No, tell me, what does he do? He's a Hare Krišna. Oh, I feel so bad for you. Oh, you poor thing. But now, he graduated from college, he has his degree, he's married. Oh, he's become normal again. Good. Good for you. Therefore, the conclusion is that we have to hear Srimad Bhagavatam as Srila Vyasadeva is given to us as the actual remedy for our actual problems of our real disease, old age, disease, and death, and then taking birth again. And follow the remedy according to our ability to do so, and then life will become actually good, Krishna conscious, and good. So I'll stop there. Thank you. Any questions? What? Okay.
Is it true that the essence of our service is the love to the Lord?
The essence of the service is loving Krishna. Well, I think service is loving Krishna to some degree. So that's why we're doing the service, is to learn to love Krishna. To be in line with his mission is love, identifying with it and doing it. Yes. Anything else? Okay.
Gurudev, I was thinking about, you mentioned that competition, like for example on Sankirtan, is also another form of envy.
Well, yeah, sure. So it could be a form of love. But even if it's enviousness, it's not bad. Because even not bitterly envious. It's not that someone's about to distribute a book to someone else, then we go up and say, hey, don't take that book, it's a cult. And if you take it, don't give a donation, because we're doing Lakshmi points instead of book points. That's not good. But, we say, wow, look what he's doing, I wish I could do that too. I should be able to do that. Then Krishna will help out. He'll send someone or give us the intelligence something. So that's all right, as long as we don't become disturbed the fact that the book got distributed. Why I'm losing. Hey, take the book, go up to the person who walks away, say, hey, get your money back. He's part of a cult, he cheated.
Yeah, because I was wondering about this, especially on marathon, we all are competing with each other. And there's so much competition, and then every day when you hear the points, and then you are like, oh my gosh, I have to do more. But I think then it's good in a sense, because then you're inspired to do more.
Yeah, of course. Probably encourage competition like that. When I was on Radha Damodar, we had a competition so many years with the LA Temple. And when the LA Temple was doing better, probably got some message, the LA Temple was doing more books, selling more books than the Radha Damodar Temple. So Prabhupada said, if Tamal Krishna Maharaj hears this, he'll have a heart attack. So that's good. That's how, generally speaking, it's one of the inspirations of distributing. We generally don't pick up the Bhagavatam and merge into Krishna's pastime as soon as we touch it. Therefore, we don't think, when we hand someone, but we're handing them nectar, But, we have a little competition, and we think, well, everyone else is doing it, I should do it too. And that inspires it. Well, they think, well, I sold so many books, maybe I should open up and see what's in it. A little curious, what am I selling here anyhow? Wow, Krishna, yeah, it's not so bad.
Just one more question related to book distribution. I've never understood one thing. there are times, I mean, I understand the part of it that when the books are not going, and sometimes your sadhana is good, you do everything, you go for Mangalarti and everything, and then you still go out and you distribute books, but then Krishna is not sending people, and obviously marathon is a time when you get super tired, because I think that it's just another level, because it's also so cold and it's a lot of austerity. At least for me it is a lot. And then I remember one time, like recently last year, I was very much focused on my sadhana, like whole month, and also a lot of reading. And then there were days when the books were just flying, and then other day Krishna would always arrange that the books were not going so much, so it was always up and down. And I mean, one part I understand is because Krishna wants us to depend on him more, so that we can pray and surrender and understand we are not the doer. But then I also do not understand this, that even sometimes sometimes I didn't have very good sadhana, but then those days I had really good on book distribution. But then it was vice versa. I had a really good sadhana, but then those days I didn't have, a lot of books didn't go.
Well, I think one of the lessons is that Krishna is not inspiring you to do sadhana so you can sell more books and make more money. That's not the goal of sadhana. Hare Krišna, Hare Krišna, $50. So that's a good thing to learn. We do sadhana to enter into Krishna consciousness, not to sell more books. But if we're in Krishna consciousness and we're inspired that these are nice books, this is something valuable for people to take, we're much more likely to sell more books also. And if we don't, that's all right too. We have to we're doing it for Krishna as a service, as an instrument for Krishna. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he went to Varanasi, the first time no one paid any attention to him, so he left. That's God. What to speak of. Imagine if you're a guy in the middle of the street trying to sell a book and no one stops. Do you think he gets depressed and think, I'm going back to Golokam Vrindavan? No, he's still in bliss. It's service to Krishna. Jatayu didn't win the fight against Ravana. He fell down. Ramachandra didn't come up to him and say, hey, I said in the Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna that anyone who yatra yogeshvara Krishna yatra partha dara tatra shir vijayam bhutira dhruva nitya matir mama. Wherever Arjuna, Sanjaya says at the end, wherever there's Krishna and Arjuna, there'll be certainly opulence, victory, morality, and extraordinary power. So here I am, Chaitanya is thinking, I'm fighting on behalf of Krishna. There's supposed to be victory, but I just lost. What's wrong? And Lord Ramachandra didn't come along and say, hey Jatayu, my side is always the winning side. How did you ever lose? What's wrong with you? You didn't change your rounds today? Is that why you lost? No, we have to accept this devotional service as a continuum, and sometimes we should make an effort to chant our rounds, sadhana, that's good. Even if it's for the fact that we want to distribute more books. But we have to be detached from the results too. And then maybe we'll do sadhana simply to please Krishna, to become Krishna conscious. Because if we do it to please Krishna, then we'll be pleased too. Anything else? Okay.
Okay. So Maharaj, you mentioned in the beginning of your lecture that when we are in suffering and when we have fears, we are not able to focus on Krishna. And my question is how we can manage these fears and suffering.
No, we can focus on Krishna. Just most people are not, that's not the first thing they think about when they're suffering. Yeah. But by practice, of course, that's what we're trying to do. That's why Krishna told Arjuna, you're not your body. The next thing he said, learn tolerance. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, be humble, and then be tolerant. Be humble and Krishna conscious, and then be tolerant. So that's what we're learning. And by practice, we'll be able to do it. In any circumstance, we'll be able to think about Krishna. even at the time of death, we'll be able to think about Krishna. That's what we're practicing for. And even when everything's going well, we should also think about Krishna. One more question.
Hare Krishna, Gurudev. You mentioned this verse, Satam Prasangam Mamavirya Samvido, and it says, in the association of Satam, Srila Prabhupada translates, in the association of pure devotees. But I heard you sometimes said, in the association of those who are interested in eternity. So my question is that, what does it require from one to be qualified to hear and chant Srimad Bhagavatam in the association of devotees?
Well, qualified. You just have to put your body there. The body's there, and you open your ears a little bit. Try to pay attention. That's the only qualification. Hvala Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanande.
Hari Bol. His Holiness Prahladananda Maharaj ki jai.
Please, Hare Krishna. Please, I would like your attention 5 minutes, please. So at 10 we will start here with the Vyasa Puja. Until then we need 2 volunteers to help with the cleaning of the dining and probably also upstairs with the boga room and such, because it's a bit of a mess and you cannot step there. So please, 2 volunteers for that. It can be done now, to clean a bit the boga room upstairs. The cleaning of the dining is after breakfast. And also everybody who volunteered to help with the chopping of the vegetables, when you finish with your breakfast, if you take breakfast, please go near the dining room is the helper's kitchen and chop the vegetables so that the devotees can cook for lunch. That's it?
We can clean here.
Yeah. And also I still need 2 more volunteers for services during Vyasa Puja. One is to clean the flowers, the petals after Pushpanjali, and one to give the plates with cake to Guru Maharaj. So if anyone is willing to do that, yes, Prabhu, thank you so much. Thank you. Hare Krishna, see you at 10. Most important is the cutting of the vegetables, please. So whoever can go and help before 10 a.m. because they will start cooking. So please go if you can do it. Thank you so much. You want to share now? Okay. So wait one more half an hour. And then here can we see? No need to wash. So now we need to swipe on the measures that are left. Yes, and then never there used to be there where Govinda is standing. Not this one, that one here. And then Deva, I will ask Sudha Prabhu to move. So those
yeah, you can come and help me.
there, and then you have to move the Vyasa
You move
here.
the process on there.
Yes, okay.
So yeah.
This is enough.
It's okay.
It's sorry. The only thing that is not Da, oricum poate să le ia și să curețe și cât sunt oferitele, pentru că arată mai încolo.
Yeah, we don't.
Nu, că le-au pus jos, ale Ljubljani. Nu, era doar frunzele și jos în fața frunzelor